Hello, hello. It is Tuesday, and we are here. Actually, it's just me today. Miss Kayla hopefully will be able to join us for a little bit later on. But we have asked Mr. Andy Lyons from Lyons Law Group to come and talk with us today. It's kind of a background to it a little bit. So I had shared one of our segments over into one of the groups in Hudson. And we had a little feedback that they were disappointed that we were talking about things when there was so much destruction. So my response was, it was not supposed to be like, hey, let's talk about all the great things in the industry. It was more of like, here's some options and things that will help, and a helping hand, so to speak. So then I was on Facebook that Andy had posted, and it kind of went along with what we were talking about. So I feel like there's a lot of questions that are going on, especially now. I think our last storm was October, and some people have started to recover and others have not, or they feel lost, or they feel like they have no options for one reason or another, because everybody has some different circumstances. So anyway, I asked Andy to come and talk with us a little bit and talk about some of the options that he has and some things that he has seen in the last few months based on those storms, or even few years, to see what types of options, are out there so we can be that helping hand in our community. So welcome. That was a long introduction, but that's the gist of why we're here and, how it started. And you are the owner of Lyons Law Group right here locally in Newport Richey. And you've been there for 17 years, I think?
Yep, that's right. Been practicing law nearly 30.
Wow.
But had this practice here for just over 15 years now. 2 locations, one here in Newport Richey and Trinity, and the other in Spring Hill to serve kind of Pasco and Hernando counties.
Oh, I think that I did know, but how long ago did you open the one in Spring Hill?
About 4 years ago now, right? Just kind of right at the beginning of COVID, not intentionally, I promise.
Right.
But just right at that same time frame, we had been in business about 10 years, and I've always kind of had a presence up in Hernando County, but then I was able to kind of expand and open up another office up there because it helps. It helps to have a physical presence in the location where you're working.
For sure. And I've called you on different occasions for some different advice. You basically specialize in like foreclosure defense and litigation for things like that. Actually, Miss Kayla's popping in right now. I see her.
Oh, good.
So what?
Hi.
We were just talking about like the things that Andy has to offer, and he specializes in foreclosure. It does some litigation and things like that for real estate. And I had mentioned that unfortunately you were a flood victim of the last couple years, and your circumstances was a little bit different, but I thought that it would be good to have you come on and be able to ask some questions too, because you've experienced it.
Turning my volume up because for whatever reason it's not like connecting to my car. But I did see somewhere on social media there was a comment, and you were tagged in it, Andy, because something to do with flooding. I don't really remember what it was, but you were helping somebody or a couple people, whether, I don't know if it was with the county or with their insurance in general, but I know that you were involved in some way. So
yeah, it's interesting. Never in a million years did I think that I would end up doing what I'm doing, but I love it. I love fighting for the little guy, fighting for mom and pop, fighting big banks, fighting governments. It's just kind of, I don't know, what I've ended up doing, and what that translates to in terms of property, which is real estate, which is really my area of expertise, is real estate litigation. And so real estate litigation usually takes the form of a bank filing a foreclosure against somebody. And we've created a whole division of my law firm dedicated to saving the homes from the foreclosure with modifications or other workout plans or short sales or regular sales or whatever it is to try and solve the situation. But then these two storms came in and they just turned everything on its head, because you've got some folks that are in a really, really tough spot. You've got this FEMA 50-50 rule that's out there, and that's a whole, I'm sure, show of discussion. But tied in with that, you've got folks now that, have lost everything. They're not living at home. They're staying in a hotel or a friend's house. But they still got a mortgage on their property. They still have to pay this mortgage every month. And so this is what creates the snowball. This is what creates the problem, actually, because they'll reach out to their bank and they'll say, hey, look, I know the bank is working with you or with me to try and get the property fixed, because now you're working with the property loss division of the bank. But the property loss division of the bank doesn't talk with the loss mitigation department of the bank, which is the one that'll deal with workout programs and things. I think they do that intentionally, quite frankly, because what will happen is folks will just call in and they'll get a forbearance. And while this sounds good, where the bank says, don't worry about it, take 3 months off or take 6 months off, you don't have to make any payments for the next 6 months. And you kind of take a sigh of relief and say, oh, this is great, I don't need to make payments. Well, at the end of those 6 months, most people think, oh, great, I just start making my mortgage payment again. Well, wrong. You owe 7 payments. You owe all 6 that you haven't made, plus the one that's coming due. And most folks are sort of like, hey, look, I didn't even have the money to make the payment to begin with. I don't have 7 payments at once. But now you're more than 6 months behind. Now you get triggered into foreclosure. Now the bank is filing the foreclosure. And this is all because you can't get the two divisions to talk with each other. You're working with the bank to get your place fixed, but at the same time, they're pushing ahead in their forbearance and the foreclosure. So that's where a lot of people are right now. They're kind of trapped in this, I've got to make my mortgage payment, but my place is not livable, or there's work that's going on. But meanwhile, the storms have affected my ability to earn an income. I've been out of work and not earning, so I can't necessarily make that mortgage payment right now. And then the snowball begins. So we're seeing a lot of that at the moment. But I know that was a lot. So let me pause there for a minute, Lindsay and Kayla.
I feel like it should be illegal to not tell people that, or is there like somewhere in like the fine print?
Not only that, they lie. They outright lie. So you're going to call your bank on the phone and you're going to say, hey, look, I've had COVID. I've had a health issue. I've had a divorce. I just lost half of my house in a storm. Whatever the reason is, they are all too happy to say, here you go. Here's your forbearance. And here's what they say to you on the phone. Don't worry. We'll have a program to help you when we get to the end of this thing. Okay. That doesn't mean anything. Not only that, they'll never put it in writing. They will never say, yes, you can stop making your payment for 6 months, and then at the end, we'll have a modification waiting for you where we're going to take those 6 payments and put them on the back end, or whatever it is most people think will happen with those payments, right? They don't do that. In fact, at the end of that, you have to apply. Now, here you are now applying, but your life has just been turned upside down by these storms. So your income doesn't look like it should. Your debt to income ratio doesn't look like it should. So you've got issues qualifying for the loan that you've already got because they told you it was okay to stop making the payment. I have asked every single client for anyone to bring me that in writing from the bank, and of course they can't because it doesn't exist. The banks will never put that in writing. But yes, I think it's just outright fraud to tell people this. And then not only that, you're talking with this person who may not work there next week, and they really don't care about you or your house. And meanwhile, my clients are losing sleep. They're not eating right. Their relationships are in trouble. This is a big deal. But you call into the bank and they don't really care. You don't get somebody assigned to your file. So it's not as if you have a single point of contact readily available anyway. And even then, if you did get someone, they would tell you, don't worry about it. We'll figure it out when we get there, which sounds great to someone who's under a lot of stress, who is under a situation where they don't know what to do. They're being given this sort of relief valve by the bank, which I think is an intentional misrepresentation. It's a way that the bank will eventually get to take the house.
Yeah.
And I think it's designed to do that. But that is, okay, of course, that's that 30 years of being a jaded attorney fighting banks talking. But I really think that there are not a lot of resources out there for homeowners. There's not any sort of government entities they can call or action groups of any kind. Everybody's kind of sort of left on their own to figure it out. And then, of course, mix into that FEMA 50-50 rule, which makes it sometimes impossible for people to do anything about it at that point as well. So,
there's a lot of stress on the homeowners, and not everybody has, friends or family that, kind of is there to help guide them. Hey, contact this person, or this is what you need to do. With, first of all, insurance, your mortgage company, and then with the county. So really, there isn't a ton of direction, and it's not fast enough. Because nobody knows what the heck to do. Not everybody floods, ever in their life, let alone once or twice, So it just nobody has the experience to be like, this is step 1, 2, 3. So I think that.
I mean, how many months does it take to get like insurance if you have proper coverage and you're able to utilize that? How long does that take? And you're in this home that is not livable for how long?
It's exactly for how long. I mean, 6 months to a year is a fair estimate of time frames. Okay, where are you living during that time frame? Who is paying for that during that time frame? How are you earning a living? Where are your clothes? How do you survive during that time period? And of course, then that all ties into, and then what do you do about a house at this point? Are we walking away? You hear a lot of unscrupulous sort of investors coming out of the woodwork, talking people into all sorts of stuff when they're under duress and they're in these bad situations. People, when they're in that really tough spot, are very susceptible to folks who will come promise to make it all better and to solve all the problems. Just sign your deed over to me and we'll have this thing where we can help you. And to me, that's the red flag. It's just, please stop, have somebody take a look at that stuff. There are most certainly other solutions than to just walking away or giving up. But like you said, nobody has any answers. There's no one place for people to go to. Everybody has a different opinion. Even when you go to the government, even you go down to the government center and ask, they're changing their opinion, weekly on whether you need a permit or you don't, whether certain things are going to be covered and certain things aren't. So, it's a mess, and it's a very tough time for folks right now to try to navigate. Do we keep making that mortgage payment every month? I mean, we're not even living there. What do we do? Or we are there, but the insurance isn't quite paying enough for me to get everything fixed. So I'm having to dip into some funds to do that. And look, turns out I need a new roof now also, but I wouldn't have had all of this happen, but that's 20 grand I don't have. So, these things, they just snowball. And I think that is kind of what you see happening with a lot of folks right now. And we're in a tough spot because of it.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, some of these people are, and a lot of them are living in their house with no walls, like no air conditioning, like they're living in a gutted house because they don't have money to fix it yet, or they're waiting on permits, or they're waiting on insurance, or all the above, or they're living in a tent. I mean, it's just, the people that don't have the money to go out and buy an RV, or that don't have one, or don't have money to pay $5,000 for an Airbnb, a month, or rental. It's really like you said, a lot of people are struggling, and not everybody realizes that because the storms were 4 months ago. you know, everybody else is that's not, you know, involved in this world or don't have, you know, friends or family on the water that were affected. They don't even remember that these hurricanes happened.
Right.
Yeah,
I
very
agree with
true.
that. I mean,
Very
it's
true
very,
memory. And I think you're right, Kayla. There's a lot of people that are living with it, where they had that first round of where they got it so that we make sure the mold isn't growing, but then nothing else happened. The floors didn't go in, and the drywall didn't go in, and we're just now fighting with insurance companies and FEMA and the county, and nothing's happening. And months will just go by. And we're starting to see that effect now. You know, you're starting to see it. Not only that, of course, the real estate market has completely changed, right? What was an absolute seller's market on the same day, offers coming in above list, is now 6 months before we're, you know, with 2 price reductions along the way. So, you know, we're seeing a dramatic shift. Interest rates are up, makes it harder for buyers to buy, right?
Yeah.
Hopefully we see a change there. Oh, well, this is a good one for Lindsay. You know it's coming your way, Lindsay.
coming.
What's going to happen with interest rates? What do you think?
So we will not get as many cuts this year that we did last year, but I think the ones that we will be getting, and Kayla and I have talked about this, will be better in the way of keeping things on an even level. So it's not going to be, oh, we're up here and now we're all the way down here. Now we're up here and now we're all the way down here. So I think that that in the near future we're going to definitely see some lowering of interest rates, especially from where we are right now today. Hopefully back to where we were for a very short period of time a few months ago, or even lower. But I don't think it's going to be like, okay, right away we're having rate cuts, things like that. We're going to see a little bit more of an even market, I'm hoping. Of course, we don't have crystal balls to determine that, but that's what they're anticipating.
Yeah.
And then as far as like the options that I have on my side, if somebody were to call me and say, my home flooded and we don't know what to do type of thing, I on my side literally have one option. That option is basically an FHA backed, it's called a 203H type of mortgage. And they will insure, you know, FHA loans to 100%. Yes, they are kind enough to say, okay, we're not going to look at, now you're out of work, your income's changed, now you have lates on your credit. So they try to be nice, we'll call it, and not overlook that, but take that in consideration when they're offering these types of loans. You can do rebuilds, or you can, you know, basically go and buy another home. Say that you're a renter in one of those houses. We're able to do those types of loans for renters, and basically they wouldn't have to come up with their 3.5% down payment. Essentially, they're getting 100% financing. They'd still have to come up with their closing cost. But on my side of things, as far as like options for people that have lost their home to some type of destruction, whether it be floods or hurricanes or fires, my options are very limited as well. So when I saw your post that you have, you know, a whole part of your business set up to be able to help these people, I was very intrigued, and I was reading just a little bit, but basically it was their property was in Hudson. It was flooded. They've gone on disability. They can't afford the mortgage any longer. They didn't have the resources to rebuild. I'm just kind of glancing over what it was. There was a problem, something with the second mortgage being the SBA. And your response was that you gave a free consultation, your entire system set up in your law firm to help people just like that, and to call you, and that you're able to help them through this. So that's kind of what
To navigate
intrigued me. And I'm definitely interested in what type of options that you have, because I have one. That's it. I don't know. I'm sending you to Andy.
I get it. No, I get it. So my way of dealing with that kind of depends upon when the folks get to me. So if they get to me just at this stage now, where they're just behind a few months,
Mid-January. Yeah.
that allows me to kind of get ahead of it a little bit. At that point, we're working directly with the lender on modifications. And sometimes we're working with the lender to try and pull some of the principal down if we're underwater. In other words, if that loan is $400,000, but now the property is only worth $250, you know, why would we want to continue to pay on a $400,000 loan? It doesn't make sense. So with a good appraisal, with some massaging of the loss
like
mitigation
subject to appraisal, like after you've done the improvements, or
yes. So yes, it's not the condition of the property with all of the damage from the storm, because theoretically there's insurance proceeds available to fix that and bring it back to what was pre-storm condition.
with $700, let's go.
Right, that's just it, right? So the goal is to try and work directly with those lenders now, so that two things. One, it doesn't automatically trigger them to go right into foreclosure. We need to slow that down by hopefully years if necessary, but to pull it out of that track and get it into the loss mitigation track, where we're working on valuations and applications, and the application for a modification is similar to that of a regular mortgage application. It's got some overlap there, but basically the bank is looking at how much you have coming in every month and what do you got going out. And then from there, we get into some affordability issues. The bank will typically not want that payment to be more than 31% of their gross on a monthly basis. So we kind of know going in what will fly and what won't, and what are the best shot at getting approved and what doesn't. But I've definitely learned that communication is everything. In communicating with that first lender and communicating with the SBA, letting them know what we're doing, what's happening with the property, what's going on with the repairs, what we're after, what we're trying to do, even if we're going to take a forbearance, that we're going to be applying for the modification at the end of the forbearance. All of these things are designed to kind of slow the bank down from filing that foreclosure action. Of course, a lot of times I get them after the bank has filed the foreclosure action, and then my foreclosure defense system and team kicks in to try to beat them. I mean, we fight foreclosures to win. We're trying to have it dismissed, trying to show that the bank doesn't have the paperwork they need in order to foreclose. Along the way, though, of course, we're trying to maybe use that as leverage to get a modification, because again, the goal is typically to save the home. So depending upon where I get any given file will determine how we need to deal with it. But for us, for what we try and do, it's all about communicating with the bank and letting them know you're represented. If they know that you're represented, they'll be slower to just drop the hammer and file their foreclosure lawsuit, because there's some back and forth going. They're worried about potentially dual tracking, where you're in a modification application status, but then they're filing the foreclosure anyway, and there's some laws that prohibit that. So I just find that they're on their toes more when we're trying to communicate with them, and we're sort of vaguely in the background, sort of threatening, hey, you better actually process this loan modification because we're watching now. So
well, you also have the experience, and
a lot of this is, and a lot of it is designed by the banks to make people pull their hair out and give up. They make people send stuff in 6 times before they admit that they've got it. They say that you didn't sign page 2 of the tax return. They don't have the 45060, even though you know you sent it in. You have proof that you sent it in 3 times, in fact. But the person you're talking with now is lazy and they don't want to scroll down on their computer and see it. Even if they do, they may not even check the box that it is there, and so it may never make it to underwriting. And that's what we try and do. We just pound on them relentlessly to make sure that they first admit to us that they have what I already know that they have in writing, and then secondly, process what we know they have with underwriting. And we found that, something like about 90% or more of the modification applications we attempt to get approved, I think that is in large part because we make it through the gauntlet they set up, because of all of the traps and the slowdowns and the things that they put in place to make it not work. we don't allow to happen, I guess is the best way to describe it. They love to say that, well, you were missing a document. Well, how come you didn't tell me? Well, their response is, well, you didn't ask. That's insane, but that's what people do. Or they'll get a letter that was dated 2 weeks ago that says the bank needed a document in 10 days. But that's already passed by the time they get the letter in the mail. That is on purpose. They could get you something the next day if they wanted to. They serve you with the foreclosure when they're ready, that's for sure. But those are the games that I think that trip people up, that we've had to create a whole system. The modification team, I call them the mod squad. All they do all day is beat their heads against the phone and the computer, forcing underwriting to admit that they have what we know that they have. That's the insanity of what we have to deal with here. But that if you've got a full-time job and you're not living at home and you're trying to deal with the insurance and you're trying to deal with the bank, this is an impediment. You don't have the time or the ability to deal with it. And so that has led me to sort of create this internal system to try and, all right, wherever you are in this, let's pick it up, let's kind of go through it and find a way out. The way out is almost uniformly trying to keep the home. That can also look like a refi. Sometimes it's not our loan, it's somebody, the other spouses or a parent's loan, and the kids are going to come in and we can refi our way out of it. Lindsay, I can work with you on those, or a reverse mortgage to get out of a situation can be a fantastic solution at times. I know it's outside the box, but that's kind of where we need to be with these things.
Well, it's circumstantial. Everybody has their own story.
Yeah.
And where they are. Yeah.
So that's
this important part that you were saying, is just communicating not even only with you and the banks, but the client and you, like knowing all the ins and outs and hearing where they've gotten to this far and the things that they have experienced up until this point.
And if I could give any advice to anybody, it would be just keep going. Don't give up. We just finished one where we fought for 2 years before the bank finally gave us a modification. And this woman was facing a foreclosure sale when she came to me, and we got that stopped. And we applied over and over and over and over until finally it got approved. What's interesting is you never really quite know why. There's a government kickback program that's giving the banks some extra money this month, so now they're approving the modifications. Stuff I'll never actually get to know or find out, but the truth is, I don't care. As long as it benefits my client and it works out that they keep the house, okay, fine. I don't care how we get there. But it can take a while. It's not necessarily a quick process with these things either.
Agreed. Well, like I said, I'm glad that, there are other options rather than them sitting there in complete, what do I do? That's a terrible feeling of the unknown, the uncertain of what to do next. So, like I said, I'm really glad that there's more. When I have one option, I'm like, oh, well, I don't know what to tell you now. So,
and then same thing, where Kayla kind of comes in, maybe the move is to sell it now. Maybe it's time to say, okay, we're at that moment where we don't want to keep it anymore for a variety of reasons. But there's times when it makes sense to kind of coordinate that in as well.
And some people have different resources than others do. Her being in the real estate industry, she has many contacts and, people to help and to guide her because they're involved in her life. And not a lot of people have that. So, with it happening twice to her and, a lot of, I personally know that a lot of the things that she needed to be up front. I have another friend that they literally just had a check cut to them. I think it was like January 14th or something. These storms were in October. It's January. It's crazy how long things take, and some people aren't able to get where they need to be, and they feel like they're defeated. So
and then it snowballs, right? Yeah. It's just a little bit that I can't catch up a little bit, and then it just rolls and rolls, and that's the problem. Yeah, is that even that little bit of I couldn't catch it becomes a real problem quickly.
Yeah.
While you're working on this with your bank trying to get the repairs done, 2 or 3 months have gone by. All right, if we haven't made the mortgage payment in those 2 or 3 months, we're that much closer to a foreclosure unless we're dealing with that.
Oh, absolutely. And then the strain that person has on them. Now they're sick. Now they can't go to work. I mean, the list is long of the things that potentially can happen, and they don't care. Their number on a piece of paper.
That's the unfortunate part too. Is it's not like we're just talking about a car or a watch or something of value. This is the roof over your head.
With their family and their children, or their family,
and
period.
And you really hit it on the head. It is the fear of the unknown that keeps people up at night. They may not like where they are, but if they understand this is where I am and these are all of my available options, they'll feel better. And it's just
At least they have a game plan, like a direction to go.
Yeah. And some of them may be possible and some not. I mean, an option is always to catch up the loan. Well, okay, great. If I had 17,000 sitting around to catch this loan up, I wouldn't be on the phone with you, Andy. I mean, I get that a lot. But it's an option, right? Reinstatement could be something we work towards on a payment plan. So all of those things are very client dependent, right? What do we have in terms of resources? What does the future look like? How did we get here? And I've learned that they're all different. Everybody earns something different. Everybody owes something different. Every bank is different. Every house is worth something different, and every situation is different. And then it changes over time.
Yeah.
So there's no kind of, okay, you should do this. And people get that a lot. They're told by someone that this is what they should do. And I always kind of question that. I kind of say, well, that might have worked for them in their situation under those facts, but part of that doesn't fit here, and that kind of affects the decision making. So
for sure. One of the things that just crossed my mind is that, I'm talking about this FHA type of loan. What if you have a second mortgage that has absolutely nothing to do with FHA, or it's like an equity line that you took out, well before, or, whatever that circumstance is? What do you do when you have two mortgages? And sometimes I've seen, okay, well, the first mortgage, they worked with me, but the second mortgage, we're still struggling with them. That's still a problem.
Oh yeah. Or the second mortgage just disappeared. I don't even know where they went. And 6 years later, they show up wanting the money. Yeah. What do I do? That happens more often than you would think, actually. Because those second mortgages were waiting for equity to come back into the properties. And sure enough, there it is. So here they are.
Thank you. I'll take it now.
Yeah.
Right.
But sometimes those are the issues that cause people to have to sell, because there is no saving it now. Now it's just about, okay, let's try and get some time and some space. So what I don't want to do is have a property get listed for sale by Kayla with a foreclosure auction date looming. Because what happens is the buyers will lowball you. I even had a buyer put it under contract.
They know you're desperate.
I had a buyer put it under contract with no intent of closing. Of course, we didn't know that at the time. Walked away from his $5,000 deposit, no problem at all. But registered as a bidder and bought the property 3 days later for $100,000 less than he was going to pay. So that, to be aware of those things is to say, okay, well then if the plan is to sell it, I need to put some time and some space between this foreclosure, final hearing, and auction date, and our ability to sell, or we're going to get pinched, or potentially anyway.
Right.
So, again, that's that case by case kind of a thing that, all of you face every day as well. I would encourage people to talk with a professional like the three of us, talk about your situation with folks that don't have an interest in it. Your family members, neighbors might have a different interest at heart, but folks in our industry are generally trying to say, okay, what's the situation and how do we get you to a good solution?
Correct.
That's usually what
and
we're
stop
at.
listening to everybody on Facebook.
Yeah.
Don't go there.
Yeah. Exactly. Or TikTok even, right? I mean, just please. Or they, but that's how everybody, we Google stuff. We jump online and we want to figure out, okay, what do we do in this circumstance?
Yeah.
The problem, of course, is a lot of that advice doesn't take into account your specific situation. And one small little fact, like, oh, there's a second mortgage out there, changes the whole thing, right? So that's what I mean by kind of case by case. But yes, please stay off of social media for
Their situation is
advice in your life.
not everybody's. They mean well, and they think like, oh, okay, but a lot of times it's more in depth than that for one reason or another. So, if anybody needs to speak to you, what's the best way to contact you?
Just call my office, 727-375-8900. Set a call with me, and we will discuss anything that I can help with.
Awesome.
For free.
Right. Well, thank you very, very much for your time and your help today. And
thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. Thank you, Miss Kayla, for popping in.
Yeah, I'm glad I was actually able to make it today because, you know, I was actually really bummed. I was like, man, I'm going to be busy. So, but yeah, thanks for the information. And I will be sharing your contact information with people that I know could use you.
Yeah.
That's great. Thank you. I'll help anyone I can. It's what I love to do. So thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you again, and everybody enjoy their Tuesday and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. And Kayla, we're really glad that you didn't get in an accident while on this with us and your lawyer, because that would make us all.
Oh my gosh. No, I was like, I hope I don't get into an accident or get pulled over because a cop drove by and I'm like, I'm staring at the road, I swear.
Well, if that happens, you got to leave that camera run, right? You got to let it run.
Right. We'll just keep it on.
Yeah.
It'll be live.
I'll be like, I'm actually.
Over Facebook.
Yeah, this is my lawyer right here. You're looking at him.
Yeah. I feel like as funny and awkward as this is,
it might work out. Right.
Yeah, exactly. So.
All right.
All right, guys. Thank you.
Enjoy your day, guys. I'll talk to you later.
Bye, guys. Take care.
All right.